Okay. Um, what exactly is a vision? What exactly is a vision in a business context? And the reason why you might want to listen to this is because we've been working with strategy for several decades, and we've also mapped over these ideas of strategy to the human nervous system, so that we know that we have something that is worth your while and it's going to save you a lot of time, should you care to listen. But what I'm going to do is explain what a vision is, and then I'm going to give an example of myself not listening and why you might not listen, and then I'm going to point to some resources. Okay, so the benefit of this, whether you like the word or not, is that it's going to save you a lot of time. And by time I mean take a year and bring it down to a week. Now that's a significant amount of time for a chief executive to save. But as I said, you might well just ignore what I'm saying. Okay, so what exactly is a vision? I've looked it up in the dictionary. I'm not making it up. It's a person or a thing which is apparently perceived otherwise than by ordinary sight. So it's a person or a thing apparently perceived otherwise than by ordinary sight. And it goes on in this vein. It's an apparition of a prophetic, revelational or supernatural nature presented to the mind in sleep, in a state of heightened spiritual or emotional awareness. Heightened spiritual or emotional awareness. There's two very important qualities if you want to have a vision, according to the dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary. And then something you might recognise is a distinct or vivid mental image or concept. And it goes on in this way. It talks about perception, it talks about imagination, it talks about spiritual nature, it talks about mystical insight, it talks about foresight. And then it talks about the ability to plan or form policy in a far-sighted way. Now the key to these word descriptions are that they are receptive. They are receptive in nature. They are not what we would call active. So when you think about strategy and you think about implementation, you can certainly think of it as active. When you think about this kind of strategy workshops you might have had, they might well have been active. But the dictionary and the description of a vision, something perceived otherwise than by ordinary sight, spiritual or emotional awareness, imaginative, spiritual in nature, is talking about receptivity. So as a chief executive or anybody else involved in strategy, we're talking about moments of receptivity. I think this is really important. Okay, so that's the definition of a vision. You can imagine that a visionary might be receptive. And there are ways of tuning into receptivity. Right, so why you might not listen. So I'm going to give you an example of my own arrogance. That's the best way I can think of describing it. I wanted to learn about YouTube, and I thought, okay, there were a number of reasons why I wanted to learn about it, one of which was to look at how to design products, digital products. And so I bought a training from a company called Primal Video, and they go into great detail about how to train yourself to use YouTube, how to set up your channel, and how to do the SEO and that sort of thing. And it was this bit about the SEO which was quite interesting, because the search engine optimization in many ways determines your viewing figures. Are you reaching the right audience? And they've basically got this 1, 2, 3 methodology. So I did this 1, 2, 3 methodology, and after 6 months I went back and I assessed my figures, and the viewing figures weren't there. So I went back into the training program to look to see what I had done. And because I've been in marketing, I had clearly taken a view that number 1 and 2 weren't relevant, and I'd just done number 3. So I wasted 6 months because I didn't do 1 and 2. So then I thought, okay, well, I'll get it right this time, and I did it again. And 6 months later, I came back and the viewing figures weren't there. And I went back to the training program and I looked at 1, 2 and 3, and I realized I deleted number 1. I hadn't done number 1. So 12 months had been wasted because the figures were improving as I actually followed the procedure. I can't tell you about number 1 yet because I haven't done it properly. I'll give you some feedback in about 6 months' time. So in my mind, there was steps 1, 2 and 3 clearly laid out by Primal Video, who had built a successful channel and were making money from a successful channel. And in my arrogance, my silentness really, I had accidentally, even though I'd studied it, deleted first of all step 1 and 2, and the second time around step 1. Right, now this is what it's like when you do a strategy. I am saying to you that the first part of strategy, the bit that will save you a year, is the subjective bit. It is the bit about your vision. It is a bit about your feelings. It is subjective. And if you don't do that piece at the beginning, what happens down the line is you find out you haven't done it. And then you find yourself having to do it halfway through the strategy, a third of the way through or 2/3 of the way through. So you're going to waste 6 months, you're going to waste 12 months, and if you continue, you're possibly going to waste 5 years because strategy plays out over that period of time. Now, am I nearly shouting? Possibly. I know that's not the way to get you to listen. I'm banking on the fact you're going to ignore what I'm saying, which will be such a waste. Simply because you won't do the instructions according to 1, 2 and 3. Now I'm going to point you towards a couple of resources. The first resource is something that looks at 5 components of good strategy, which as far as I'm concerned is based on strategy itself, as you might understand it, and also human anatomy, the human nervous system. So it's been tediously built over time to not so much give you an advantage, to give you something that works. And that is named as diamond mining in the links below. It's just a simple document that points out the 5 elements that you need to have there. But they do represent the way that your brain works and the way that your nervous system works once we go into it in detail. And as a result of following that kind of procedure, you can save yourself a year or possibly 5 years. And the second resource I'd like to point you to is a video series which I did called Business Strategy in Lockdown, which goes through each step of the 5-step model in slightly more detail. And it's linked in this as the playlist in this video here. So there's 2 resources that you might want to use. In the first resource, when you download the diamond mining, I get your email address. So that's what's in it for me in terms of giving away my know-how to you. Not much to ask, but I do get your email address. If you watch the videos, I don't get anything. But perhaps if you're only going to watch the videos, what you could do is subscribe. Press the Z logo, the gold-coloured logo, in order to subscribe if you like this kind of original and proven strategy work.